A man steps off the curb in the middle of a crowded street. Headlights surge toward him. A horn screams through the air. But he does not flinch. Not because he is brave, because somewhere deep inside his brain, the machinery that once warned him to survive has gone silent. And for a fraction of a second, before metal collides with flesh, the entire structure of human civilization becomes visible for what it really is. Not a monument to intelligence, but a monument to fear. Most people think fear is a weakness, an obstacle, a primitive flaw left over from our evolutionary past, something humanity is slowly overcoming. That is not what fear is. Fear is infrastructure. Invisible infrastructure. It lives beneath every law, every city, every relationship, every religion, every financial system, every military doctrine, every moral code humanity has ever constructed. Remove it,
and the species begins to come apart. Not slowly, immediately. Because fear is not merely an emotion, it is a navigation system. And without it, human beings do not become free. They become dangerous. First to themselves, then to everyone else. Researchers have observed fragments of this reality before. There are rare neurological conditions in which parts of the brain responsible for fear processing become damaged, particularly the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure buried deep within the temporal lobe. Patients with these conditions often describe something unsettling. They still understand danger intellectually, but they no longer feel it. One woman, studied for years by neuroscientists, could calmly hold venomous snakes, walk into unsafe environments, approach strangers without hesitation. She knew the risks, but knowledge alone could not replace the biological alarm system evolution had spent hundreds of millions of years constructing. And researchers noticed something strange. Without fear, decision-making itself began to distort. Because fear is not separate from intelligence. Fear prioritizes intelligence. It tells the brain what matters, what deserves attention, what must be avoided, what cannot be ignored. Without fear, the mind loses hierarchy. The world stops feeling sharp. Consequences stop feeling real. Most people imagine a fearless humanity as heroic, confident, liberated. But evolution does not reward bravery. Evolution rewards survival. And survival often belongs to the cautious organism, the animal that hesitates before entering the dark cave, the only human who notices movement in tall grass and steps backward instead of forward. Fear kept fragile primates alive long enough to become human.
Long before cities existed, long before language, long before history itself, fear was already shaping civilization from the shadows. Every species on Earth lives inside a constant calculation, a silent equation balancing hunger against death. A gazelle grazing in an open field is not relaxed. Its nervous system remains partially engaged every second, scanning for predators hidden somewhere beyond visibility. Even sleep is compromised. Many animals sleep in fragments because deep unconsciousness can become fatal. Nature never fully turns fear off, because the organisms that did never lasted very long. And humans inherited that ancient system. But then something unprecedented happened. Fear evolved beyond predators. Humans began fearing ideas, rejection, exile, humiliation, failure, gods, economic collapse, political enemies.
the future. Eventually, fear stopped protecting the body alone. It began organizing entire civilizations. Walk through any modern city and fear becomes visible everywhere once you learn how to see it. Traffic systems exist because humans fear collision. Banks exist because humans fear instability. Governments exist because humans fear chaos. Hospitals exist because humans fear death.
Yet fear is often treated as weakness. But without fear, action becomes immediate. Thought collapses into behavior. Even warfare reflects this paradox. Fearless soldiers are not always effective. They take extreme risks that endanger others. Armies survive not by removing fear, but by learning to function with it. Because when fear fades, consequences lose weight. Laws, money, promises, and even relationships depend on imagined loss. Remove that, and the future stops influencing the present. Perhaps fear is not a flaw, but the cost of awareness itself, the ability to imagine the future. Humans do not only fear what is happening, but what could happen. That ability shaped art, science, and civilization itself, attempts to control uncertainty. Which leads to the deeper question. If fear disappeared completely, would humanity still function as human? Because fear does more than limit us.
It organizes perception, meaning, memory, and identity. A world without fear would not feel peaceful. It would feel detached from reality. Without fear of fire, caution disappears. Without fear of death, time loses value. Without fear of loss, love loses weight. In the end, fear may not be humanity's weakness, but one of its most essential structures. Not because it is comfortable, but because it keeps consciousness anchored to reality.
Thank you for watching. And tell me in the comment what you think is good for humanity to lose fear.